All right, now Dr. Julianne Malveaux is a renowned economist and President Emerita of Bennett College, which is a HBCU for African American women. Now, during her tenure at the university, she helped shape the opinions of hundreds of young women as an author, syndicated columnist, and commentator. Her academic work is included in numerous anthologies, and she has researched and taught at several prestigious U.S. universities. She has also produced and hosted public affairs, radio, and television programs and designed issue-based seminars for Fortune 500 companies. Dr. Malveaux earned her PhD in economics from MIT and contributes her expertise to a number of civic, civil rights, and women's organizations. Her recent book, Are We Better Off? Race, Obama, and Public Policy, examines whether the African American community has truly benefited from President Barack Obama's presidency. We want to welcome to the Michael Imhotep Show for the first time, hopefully not the last time, our sister, Dr. Julianne Malveaux. How you doing today, sister? Okay, hello? I think I hear. Dr. Malveaux?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, how you doing today?
I am wonderful. Yourself?
Oh, I'm excellent, and it's great to talk to you. I've followed your work. I've seen interviews you've done, and you are fantastic. So I'm honored that you're on the show today, and I look forward to meeting you in person at the State of Black World Conference coming up in Newark, New Jersey as well.
Wonderful. I look forward to greeting you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, on today's show, I wanted to talk some about your book, Are We Better Off? Race, Obama, and Public Policy, and then also talk about your involvement with the State of Black World Conference. First, I want to delve into your book because the concept is, I think, timely, and you hear these conversations oftentimes at the barbershop and beauty salons and things like this. But give us an overview of what the premise of your book is.
Well, the question is, are we better off? And as you know, we black folks were very excited about the election of President Obama, but very quickly had lots of questions about what was going to be the spill-off for us. We saw immediately that he did the Lilly Ledbetter Act, which was great in terms of equal pay for women. We saw his embrace of other communities, and we really didn't see his embrace of us. And so I wanted to really examine that. A couple of times that folks talked about it in public, you get a lot of splashback from a group of people I call the Obamites. And the Obamites are people for whom President Obama can do nothing wrong.
Right.
Many of them are elders, you know, the older people who have the trilogy of Jesus, JFK, and Martin Luther King on an altar or in their house somewhere. And
right.
Many of them wanted to add President Obama to it without him having done anything, simply because he was the first black president. And then you had folks who were haters. But when you pull back the layers on some of the people who were accused of haters, some of them were haters, but others were simply asking questions about public policy. And so about a year ago, a bit more than a year ago, I looked at my body of work in terms of what I'd written about President Obama, and I pulled out 80 of what I considered my best columns, sent them to an editor, we talked about it, and then we moved on. So the way the book is organized, there is a front matter, an introduction that's very substantive. It's almost 30 pages. And I talk about what I call hopes and dreams. What do we hope for President Obama? Then I talk about some of the resistance that he experienced, what happened to all these, frankly, crazy white people who said they were going to oppose him. And then the third part of that front matter is, second part is called how do you treat a black president? And the third part is called How Does the President Treat Us? Because, as you will remember, he was the scold-in-chief. You know, he would come
right.
to black folks and tell us to pull up our pants and come to the Congressional Black Caucus dinner and say, put your marching shoes on. I'm thinking, how do you tell John Lewis to put his marching shoes on?
Exactly.
He gave almost the ultimate sacrifice, being hit upside the head, when he was 19 years old. So that's the front of the book. Then there are the 80 columns, and they begin in 2008 and go into mid-2015. Mid-2015. Then the epilogue actually looks at the numbers. So looking at the numbers in terms of the poverty rate, the unemployment rate, home ownership, child poverty, income, money to HBCUs. And I conclude at the end of the epilogue, yes, we can. No, he didn't. President Obama did not push us backward, but he also missed an opportunity to move us forward. And then the last piece of the book is just a two-pager that is 2016 and beyond. Because I think, the takeaway from the entirety of our Obama experience is that you will not get fed in your mother's house if you don't bring your plate to the table. Well, what I mean by that, Black America did not push him. Many people who could have pushed him were reluctant to do so. You had a body of sycophants who basically, and I won't mention their names, but you know who they are. Reverend Jackson was excluded from the inner circle, but the couple of so-called black leaders who were in the inner circle, basically were vying to make sure he came to their conferences as opposed to pushing him to do public policy.
Absolutely.
And so we end up with a situation where he could have done more, and he didn't because he wasn't pushed. I always think about FDR telling A. Philip Randolph, make me do it, when black folks were excluded from contracts, in World War II. When A. Philip Randolph said, okay, I'm going to make you, they threatened and had begun to organize a March on Washington. The optics of that would have been horrible. Think about having a March on Washington in the middle of a war that you're fighting for other people to have democracy. And that's when FDR put out an executive order and said, you will hire these black people. So that's how you have to do it. And we didn't really push the president that way. Now, a lot of people said, well, he has to get reelected. And you did have these rabid white people, who said that they did not ever want to see him reelected. So you can almost excuse some of the cut and pasting in the first term. But the second term, he was freed. And he didn't behave freed. He was awake, but he did not behave woke. To borrow the language of the young man. So, it's not until after 2014 that he began to take some bold steps, using the executive order to do things like raise wages at the bottom for federal contractors, but nothing, again, specifically directed to our community. He has done pardons, and they've been great pardons. He's done over 700 pardons for nonviolent drug offenders, but Eric Holder said in 2011 there were potentially as many as 10,000 people who could have been pardoned, people who have been convicted under federal law for nonviolent drug offenses. And the pace has been very, very slow with that. Gerald Ford pardoned 14,000 people by the stroke of a pen, draft dodgers from Vietnam in 1974. I'm not sure the year, but he pardoned, a whole bunch of people. President Obama could do the same thing. So he has less than 100 days left.
Right.
But he could still pardon Marcus Garvey posthumously.
Exactly.
He could do that. And there is a movement among, conscious black folks and nationalist black folk and, Garvey family and others to say, please do this. He could pick up the pace with these other folks. He could use the executive order surgically and strategically to do some things for historically black colleges who got less money under him.
Exactly. Okay.
Less money under him.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, Dr. Malveaux, we're coming up on a break. We're going to get deep into this on the other side of the break, and I'm going to pose some questions to you. You hit it right on the head. I'm not going to call any names, but I'm going to keep it real, though. So we'll get into this because you're right. We did not, especially many of our African-American leaders, did not hold his feet to the fire like they would have a white president. Okay, so just hold the line. We'll be back in a few minutes. You listen to the Michael Imhotep Show right here on the Empowerment Radio Network, where Now is Power. We're speaking with our sister, Dr. Economist extraordinaire, Dr. Julianne Malveaux. We'll be back in a few minutes. The State of the Black World Conference number 4 is taking place in Newark, New Jersey, Wednesday, November 16th through Sunday, November 20th, 2016. No more talk. It's time for action. Some of the topics being discussed and plans that will be laid out for include Pan-African Institute and Reparations, Religion, Spirituality, and Liberation, Culture and Education for Black Survival and Development, Economic Development for Black Empowerment, Mobilizing, Organizing Hip-Hop Activists and Cultural Workers for Black Empowerment, Beyond the War on Drugs, Healing Black Families and Repairing Black Communities, and Sustaining and Enhancing the Black Family. This year's theme is Racial Healing and Collaboration for Black Empowerment. Confirmed speakers and guests include Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Minister Louis Farrakhan, actor-activist Danny Glover, Ronald Hampton, Nataki Cambone, Susan Taylor, former editor of Essence Magazine, Mark Morial, president of the National Urban League, Dr. George Frazier of FrazierNet, and he's also featured in the documentaries Hidden Colors 3, as well as Black Friday. Hakeem Matabuti of Black Classic Press, talk show host Carl Nelson, hip-hop artist Jaziri X, Dr. Vern Shepard, poet Sonia Sanchez, activist Davon Love, Mel Lee Campbell of the Black Women's Roundtable, Dr. Patricia Newton, who's featured in the documentary Hidden Colors 4, The Religion of White Supremacy, Dr. Wade Nobles, Dr. Kevin Washington, Dr. Mawia Cambone, Damon Jones, Dr. Mawulana Karinga, Dr. Ron Daniels, hip-hop artist and author Sister Soldier, Professor James Small, who's featured in Hidden Colors 2 and Hidden Colors 4, legendary hip-hop artist MC Light, Chuck D of the legendary hip-hop group Public Enemy, Paradise Grade of the legendary hip-hop group The X-Clan, and Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the Michael Imhotep Show, and host of the African History Network Show. This event is organized by the Institute of Black World in conjunction with all open collaborators and collaborating groups, organizations, and individuals seeking justice to issues facing the black community in the U.S. and worldwide. To register and purchase tickets, visit letsbuyblack365.com/events/SOBWC, State of the Black World Conference. letsbuyblack365.com/events/SOBWC, and use promo code African History Network, African History Network, when you sign up. Hope to see you there. Welcome back to the Michael Imhotep Show right here on the Empowerment Radio Network, where knowledge is power. All right, we're speaking with our sister, economist extraordinaire and author, Dr. Julianne Malveaux. All right, Dr. Malveaux, are you there?
I'm here, yes.
Okay, I just want to share with you a few comments from our Facebook page, and then we're going to get right back to the conversation. So on Facebook, Nzinga Masani Manuel said, I love Dr. Malveaux. She's right. Garland McGowan said, no, we didn't hold his feet to the fire, referring to President Obama. Our ground is certainly laid out for us. And then Vanessa Redis said, I think black folk, at least a segment of us, decided not to join the chorus of Republicans and rabid white folks who literally sought and wished harm upon President Obama. If it was as if we became his human shield. And I've heard other people talk about that. You want to elaborate on that?
Well, I think that's a great point that, you know, in my book I lay out the attacks the President Obama experienced, beginning, you know, with when he was a candidate and the attempt to make him over black, if you will.
Right.
The New Yorker cover of he and Michelle fist bumping. He's got some sandals on and she's got this big old afro.
Right.
The scrutiny of Michelle Obama's undergraduate thesis from Princeton. Undergraduate thesis, which if you read it, there's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
They, you know, tried to paint her out as a black radical. And moving on, there was a minister in Phoenix, Arizona. His name was Stephen Anderson, who, from the time President Obama was elected until early February, when he was visited by the Secret Service, he announced from his pulpit that he was praying daily for President Obama's death. He announced this from his pulpit. Again, a death threat, you know, that's almost a death threat. He had a couple of billboards in Phoenix that pretty much said the same thing. It took the Secret Service until February. I mean, once President Obama was elected, you know, although he had not been sworn in, that was a threat of oppression. That man should have been shut down immediately. Joe Wilson, we remember him, Congressman from South Carolina, who, as the President of the United States was speaking, hollered out, "You lie." There was what was his name, Stauffenbrenner, who actually had the temerity to make a public statement about the size of Michelle Obama's posterior.
Correct.
Remember that?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, excuse me? You know, and then there was Elizabeth Lawton, young scandalous white woman, who worked for Steve Fisher Republican out of Tennessee, my girl was tweeting that the Obama girls needed to know how to act, and basically, I can't remember the exact language. Pretty much.
Well, she was criticizing their clothing. They had like short skirts on, nothing scandalous, but criticizing their clothing. They needed to learn how to act and things like this. Yes, I remember that.
Exactly. And then, but if you went on her Facebook page, she had a picture of herself with a bottle in her mouth and her head tilted back, and she was hardly a paragon of virtue. So, there were attacks and attacks and attacks and attacks. And so I appreciate the sister's point about a shield. At the same time, the president disregarded us systematically. The Congressional Black Caucus was the last caucus to get a meeting with him, and it was more than a year into his administration. They continually complained. One of the first things he did was cut an appropriation that Mr. Bush had put out there for historically black colleges and universities. I don't, there are a lot of black folks, and I have family members included. My mom, who once heard me on the radio making some of these same points, called me up and kind of in a very whiny voice said, "I know my daughter isn't criticizing our black president." I said, "No, ma'am, I'm offering him perspective and input. You got to respect your mom." But the fact is that too many of our people felt like he was above criticism, and one of the pitfalls of that. We didn't fuss but so much at President Obama, for example, at cutting the funds to HBCUs.
Mm-hmm. So now that was the Parent Plus loan program of 2011.
No, plus other direct funds. Title III funds were cut. The supplemental was cut. First, they threatened to eliminate it altogether. Then we fought and we got it back. And then because of sequestration, it was cut again.
Yes.
So it went from $85 million down to about $78 million. That was the supplemental, and the actual Title III dollars went down by, I think it was about 10%. The Parent Plus was a whole other issue. We lost 28,000 students.
Correct.
And those small HBCUs are tuition-driven. Our money comes from tuition. I say our because I'm a former president of Bennett College for Women. And but then they'll tell you, once an HBCU president, always an HBCU president.
All right.
But in any case, so we took all that. I had colleagues who were like, "No, we're not going to jam the president up." People felt enormous empathy for him, but the Latino community jammed him up. The GBLTQ community jammed him up, and he responded.
Correct.
We didn't jam him up, and he didn't respond.
Right.
But I hear what the sister is saying. I mean, there were times when I would go on. There's some shows I just don't even go on anymore. If I know it's going to be ignorant and hostile, unless I just feel like having a fight that day, I'll pass. Now, some days I do feel like having a fight, so, why not? But when you know that someone is going to be hostile to President Obama, I sometimes just say, I'm just not going there today. I'm not going there with you today.
Exactly.
So, I get where she's coming from, but we cannot suspend analysis and settle for the style of having a black president with having the substance of having a black president.
Exactly. Let me ask you this question. You mentioned the LGBTQ community. I'm friends with Roland Martin. I guess hosts his national radio show on a regular basis. I see you sometimes on News One Now with Roland Martin. Roland oftentimes talks about how the LGBT community pushed a 54-page agenda to President Obama within his first 60 days in office. We also understand that the Hispanic community pushed an agenda to him, and my contention was you negotiate before he gets in office, not afterwards. What I mean by that is when we look at the so-called black agenda that was talked about in January 2013, that's in his second term, okay? It wasn't presented to him until August 2013. What mistake did we make by not negotiating something tangible in the beginning for our vote, in exchange for our vote before he got into office? What mistake did we make there?
Well, we declared that we had no needs. We declared that he had us no matter what he did.
Right. By
not making any requests or demands, we essentially said, however you treat me, it's okay. Now, again, the excitement of having an African-American president, that possibility, from the time he won the nomination, from the time of that convention in August until the election in November. During that time period, there was tremendous excitement in our community. There was a defensiveness. Was Romney going to be able to get over? And obviously he didn't. But there was not Romney, McCain. But there was an excitement in our community, and there was a reluctance again to push the president, even after he was in the White House. You had people who essentially, members of Congress, so-called leaders, others, who refused to push him because they felt like let's give the brother a break.
Right.
Well, at that point, he's not the brother; he's the president of the United States.
Exactly.
And what he and many of those who surrounded him wanted to constantly remind us is he's not the president of Black America; he's the president of the United States of America. Well, from that perspective, we are part of the demographic rainbow of the United States of America, and we should have treated him the same way we would have treated any other Democrat.
Correct.
I mean, absent the invective, but to say, yes, we love him, yes, we appreciate that he's there, yes, we appreciate the history. Nobody can forget the photograph of the Reverend Jackson with a tear rolling down his face. That, to me, was just so very poignant, having been a Jackson delegate in 1984 to the Democratic Convention. So to me, that was extraordinarily poignant. And at the same time, poignant and a quarter will not get you a banana.
Correct. We're coming up on a break here in 2 minutes. So we're going to continue this on the other side of the break, and then we're also going to talk about the state of the black world. Tell people, how can they get your book, Are We Better Off, Race, Obama, and Public Policy? How can people get your book?
It is available in some bookstores. If you go to a Barnes & Noble and request it, they will order it for you. You can get it on Amazon.com, and you can come directly to my website, JulianneMalveaux.com, and get it. But Amazon.com has plenty of copies. I love to sell them out, so please go to Amazon.com. Or if you want one of those autographed copies that's personalized, come to me. We will have books at the State of the Black World Conference. We're looking forward to running into lots of folks there, friends, etc., and to selling a few books.
Absolutely. Well, you definitely going to run into me there, and I'm going to buy a copy from you there. And I'll give you one of my DVD presentations also. But I'm definitely going to buy a copy and have you autograph it. Okay, stand by, sister. We're coming up on a break. When we come back, I want to talk about African Americans losing almost 53% of our wealth over the past few years. We lost over $1 trillion worth of wealth, the impact of that. And then also, I know you're familiar with the study that came out in the last couple of months, came out in August, the ever-growing gap, that talks about how it would take the average African American family 228 years to reach the same level of wealth that the average white family has today. We need to talk about that, okay? So stand by, sister. We'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, you listen to the Michael Imhotep Show right here on the Empowerment Radio Network with Knowledge is Power. We're speaking with our sister, economist extraordinaire, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, who will be a presenter at the State of the Black World Conference coming up November 16th through the 20th in Newark, New Jersey. Okay, we'll be back in a few minutes. We're broadcasting on Facebook Live, also our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. So if you have questions or comments, you can post them on our fan page on the thread for this show. All right, we'll be back in a few minutes. We have extended the sale on the Hidden Colors Family Bundle Pack for a few more days. We started the 48-hour sale earlier this week. You get 9 DVDs, including all 4 installments of Hidden Colors 4, the blockbuster documentary series from director Tariq Nasheed that deals with thousands of years of African history and African American history. You also get 4 DVD presentations from myself, Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, and 1 installment of the animated series Afro Man and the Protectors of the Book of Knowledge. That's a $145 value. Normally it's $100 for a very limited time only. It's on sale for $85. Order your copy today of the Hidden Colors Family Bundle Pack at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com is right on the homepage of our website. For our vote, that's the other thing. We put unrealistic expectations on him. We looked at him as Barack the Magical Negro. We put unrealistic expectations on President Obama and did not present an agenda to him in the beginning to exchange something tangible for our vote. Okay, just had totally unrealistic expectations. We thought he was going to correct 400 years of oppression in 2 terms. All right. We're speaking with Dr. Julianne Malveaux, economist extraordinaire, President Emerita of Bennett College. She's also the author of the book, Are We Better Off? Race, Obama, and Public Policy. Race, Obama, and Public Policy. Okay, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, are you still there?
I'm here, yes, of course.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So right before the break, I talked about African Americans losing almost 53% of our wealth, over $1 trillion in wealth loss. I know Roland Martin talks about this a lot on News One now. News1.com. News1.com has an article from a couple of years ago. 53% of black wealth wiped out. Foreclosure crisis erodes communities of color. And then we saw the study called The Ever-Growing Gap, which came out in August of this year, which talks about how the average African-American family would need 228 years to build the wealth that the average white family has today. And they cite past and public policies that caused this to happen. And I heard you recently talk about, you were being interviewed on WCHB 1200 AM here in Detroit, because I live in Detroit. Cliff Russell was interviewing you. And you were talking about how even if we, spend a certain percentage of our $1.3 trillion economy with our own people, it still wouldn't close that wealth gap. Can you address that, please?
Sure. African Americans have roughly 7%, less than 7%. The ratio of African American wealth to white wealth is 1 to 13. So whites have 13 times as much wealth as African Americans do.
Right.
It was something closer to 1 to 10 before the Great Recession. So we lost ground because of the Great Recession. We're less likely to own our homes, but many of those who did own their homes lost their homes because of the Great Recession. 3 reasons. Some people lost their jobs and thus their homes. Some people were involved with those predatory loans or other loans that
subprime mortgages.
Loans, that basically caused them to have to make a large payment in the middle of the recession, which they couldn't afford to do. But the bottom line is that African Americans have not been fully able to participate in the economy historically. Because you're not fully able to participate, you're working less, you're saving less because you have less income. Meanwhile, many whites and others have intergenerational wealth.
Right.
We were other people's intergenerational wealth. In other words, those who owned us were able to extract surplus value from our ancestors' labor.
Correct.
Now, that's not all whites, and we know that, but we do know the ways that we've been excluded systematically. We know that in 1863, we encouraged immigration to the United States, and they had a bill that basically gave anybody who wanted it. I call it the Go West Young Man Bill because I always forget the name of it, but anybody who wanted it could get basically 40 acres of government land. Meanwhile, we never got our 40 acres and a mule. So lots of immigrants came here. I mean, the Rockefeller fortune, the Shell Oil fortune, many of these fortunes were based on that, people giving away free land, but we didn't get that opportunity for free land. So we can look at the history and understand why. So when people think of us as trifling or lazy or we didn't save, that's just not the case. And the case is also there was an organization called the Emergency Land Fund. Land was taken from us. Some of us had land. And through the Great Depression and through white economic envy, our land was taken from us. In my own family, we have what we call the myth of the moving fence. But we owned, of course, the white folks gave it to us, but we owned a bayou. We owned a piece of land that had a bayou, a very rich fishing area. And we fished there. We let other people fish there. It was my ancestors. But they let folks fish there. But one evening, the white folks just decided, those Negroes don't deserve to have that rich bayou land. When they woke up in the morning, there was a fence that blocked us from our land. Almost 30 years later, they cooked up something that said our family donated the land to the city of Moss Point, Mississippi, and they named the lane that they stole from us Hawkins Lane after our folks. But basically, they took our land. They just took it. And this happened again and again and again. People were killed over land. All of that happened. So that's history, but it has contemporary underpinnings. And the other contemporary underpinnings have to do with how we basically those of us who want to go into business often do not have the access to capital that we need, often find discriminatory lenders. We can call the roll, but the bottom line is, absent any action, though that gap will not close itself. It would take, if we increase our savings rate by 1%, take as the article says, over 200 years to close that gap. Absent any action, and no one is inclined to raise the issue around reparations. People don't want to talk about reparations, and it's one of the things that we will be talking about at the State of the Black World Conference, because it's really very important for us to understand that reparations is about restoring, repairing a community that was shattered by evil, ugly, and discrimination and racism.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So the wealth story is a very important story to tell. It's important, and I don't know if you see my book, Surviving and Thriving, 365 Facts in Black Economic History. It's an old book, but it's an evergreen. We're going to talk about various ways that we have interacted with the economy, because that's something that we tend to forget. People treat us like we're economic outsiders, but we have been economically critical to this nation. Indeed, the entirety of the capitalist system, in my opinion, rests on the labor of enslaved people. The bond system. You know, we were essentially the guarantor for these white planters who wanted to expand their holdings. How are you going to pay us back? The banks would ask, oh, well, I have $400,000 worth of slaves. Mm-hmm. So we became literally the guarantors, for their expansion.
Yeah, and we would use this collateral.
That's why I get so frustrated about the lack of knowledge of our history. That history is so very important, especially for our young people, because I want our young people not to see ourselves as people with our hands always out, but to see us as philanthropists. We have given to this country. Our blood is in the roots of this country. And, it's our country. I mean, flawed as it is, and bless Colin Kaepernick for essentially raising the question of the fundamental racism that exists in our country. But our job is to fight it.
Hey, let me ask you a question.
That's why, first of all, this election is so important. I know you didn't call me to talk about the election, but I'm going to tell you.
We can talk about it. We can talk about it because I've been going through fact-checking the claims after each debate. I go through and we do fact-checking of the claims from Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. So we can talk about it.
Donald Trump is nothing but a bold-faced liar.
Yes, he is.
And a dyed-in-the-wool racist. I mean, did you get so many people spend so much time. We talked about the fact that he said he would not concede the election. That was messed up.
Right.
We talked a bit about the fact that he called Hillary a nasty woman. That was messed up.
Right.
I mean, he might as well have called her the B word. Such a nasty woman. Excuse me. But, very few people talked a lot about the bad hombres.
Yeah.
And, yet another anti-Latino slur. He didn't say bad people,
dog
bad
whistling.
Men.
He's dog whistling. He's dog whistling to his base. Yes, using that Hispanic term and mispronouncing it also. But he's dog whistling to his base. It's not something.
So I don't know who preps him. I don't know who lets him outside. But whoever does needs to keep him in.
Well, if you go back to
but the bottom line, brother, is that I know a lot of people are raising their objections to Hillary. It's going to be Hillary or Trump.
Right.
Let's not be cray-cray. Let's figure out how to learn from the Obama years to hold Hillary accountable. And let's also begin the kind of mobilization that we need to begin. In 1992, Ron Daniels ran for president. Yes. He was on a ballot in, I think, I'm not sure how many states. It was less than 26. But he was on a ballot in several states, and it was really, a rhetorical campaign, if you will. He didn't think that he was going to win, but he thought that it was a way of mobilizing and organizing people. We have to continue to figure out ways to mobilize and organize people. Some of the millennials are saying they don't like the two-party system. Okay, so go found another party. You got 4 years, next presidential campaign, to get that party on every ballot in 50 states, which is a lot of work. Right. The Green Party is not on every ballot. The Libertarian Party is. So, there's work that has to be done, but meanwhile, we're stuck, and to me, it's not about the lesser of two evils, because I don't see Hillary Clinton as evil. I see her as a 30-year public servant who has some flaws, but I don't see her as evil. I'm going to tell you what evil is. It's a man who believes he can walk around grabbing women by their you-know-what. Excuse me. That's evil.
Absolutely,
You know.
absolutely. Hey, sister, we're coming up on a break here, and we got one more segment with you. In this next segment, I want to find out from you, what type of policies do you think we should be pushing? Because when you get into this study, the ever-growing gap, they clearly identify a history of policies like the GI Bill, Federal Housing Administration, things like this. And a lot of our people, just as you said, a lot of our people are caught up on personality. And my thing is, we have to focus on the policies that are being presented and match up how those policies match up with what your own personal interests are. And this is what a lot of people aren't doing. You are not doing. So we want to talk about that, and then also talk about your role in the State of the Black World Conference coming up November 16th through the 20th. Okay?
Wonderful.
Okay. All right. Stand by. All right. You listen to the Michael Imhotep Show right here on the Empowerment Radio Network, where knowledge is power. We're speaking with economist extraordinaire, author, talk show host, Renaissance woman, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, on the Michael Imhotep Show right here on the Empowerment Radio Network, where knowledge is power. We'll be back in a few minutes. The State of the Black World Conference number 4 is taking place in Newark, New Jersey, Wednesday, November 16th through Sunday, November 20th, 2016. No more talk, it's time for action. Some of the topics being discussed and plans that will be laid out for include Pan-African Institute and Reparations, Religion, Spirituality, and Liberation, Culture and Education for Black Survival and Development, Economic Development for Black Empowerment, Mobilizing, Organizing Hip-Hop Activists and Cultural Workers for Black Empowerment, Beyond the War on Drugs, Healing Black Families and Repairing Black Communities, and Sustaining and Enhancing the Black Family. This year's theme is Racial Healing and Collaboration for Black Empowerment. Confirmed speakers and guests include Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Minister Louis Farrakhan, actor-activist Danny Glover, Ronald Hampton, Nataki Cambone, Susan Taylor, former editor of Essence Magazine, Mark Morial, president of the National Urban League, Dr. George Frazier of FrazierNet, and he's also featured in the documentaries Hidden Colors 3, as well as Black Friday. Hakeem Matabuti of Black Classic Press, talk show host Carl Nelson, hip-hop artist Jaziri X, Dr. Vern Shepard, poet Sonia Sanchez, activist Davon Love, Mel Lee Campbell of the Black Women's Roundtable, Dr. Patricia Newton, who's featured in the documentary Hidden Colors 4, The Religion of White Supremacy, Dr. Wade Nobles, Dr. Kevin Washington, Dr. Mawia Cambone, Damon Jones, Dr. Mawulana Karinga, Dr. Ron Daniels, hip-hop artist and author Sister Soldier, Professor James Small, who's featured in Hidden Colors 2 and Hidden Colors 4, legendary hip-hop artist MC Light, Chuck D of the legendary hip-hop group Public Enemy, Paradise Grade of the legendary hip-hop group The X-Clan, and Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the Michael Imhotep Show, and host of the African History Network Show. This event is organized by the Institute of Black World in conjunction with all open collaborators and collaborating groups, organizations, and individuals seeking justice to issues facing the black community in the U.S. and worldwide. To register and purchase tickets, visit letsbuyblack365.com/events/SOBWC, State of the Black World Conference. letsbuyblack365.com/events/SOBWC, and use promo code African History Network, African History Network, when you sign up. Hope to see you there. Welcome back to the Michael Imhotep Show right here on the Empowerment Radio Network, where knowledge is power. All right, that's Arrested Development. I don't see you at the club. Visit their website, adtheband.com, adtheband.com. Support conscious hip hop. All right, on the line, we're speaking with our sister, economist extraordinaire, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, who is the author of the book Are We Better Off? Race, Obama, and Public Policy, and she's going to be speaking at the State of the Black World Conference coming up November 16th through the 20th in Newark, New Jersey. Okay, Dr. Malveaux, let me ask you this question. What policies do you think we should be fighting for to get enforced and to push to help close that wealth gap that we just talked about in the last segment?
The employment piece is really important, but clearly employment is not enough. We
Right.
also have we have a wage gap, so employment is not enough, even when you have equal wages. We have to look at wealth generation policies that are targeted to the African American community, and it's very challenging to talk about targeting to the African American community because you get the racist backlash that we've been experiencing since President Obama has been elected. But there are ideas, things around tuition. I just saw a piece of data today that the average young person is now graduated with $30,000 worth of debt, and that probably translates to about $50,000 for African American folks. So there could be a way to have a racial tuition remission. That would help the folks that go to college, but that just represents about 25% of us now. It's not everybody. What will we do for the folks who don't go to college and don't want to go to college? Folks who are in the trades, we could do things around minority business development with not only interest-free loans, but grants for folks who lived in certain zip codes or certain areas, grants
Right.
to begin a business so that some of these young brothers and sisters who have computing, mad computing skills, or really craft skills, because that's another issue, is the crafts are disappearing. And so if we could empower some young brothers and sisters to begin businesses where they were doing furniture repair and electrical work and all that. But again, the closing the wealth gap piece would be, would there be dollars available for them to start their business, or would there be free dollars available for them to start their businesses? We have a Reparations Commission at the Institute of the Black World, and the Reparations Commission has basically, in response to, or not response to, really to supplement Congressman John Conyers' H.R. 40, talked about an H.R. 40B, and there will be a conversation at the State of the Black World Conference about this, and a number of things that have been suggested to not only to repair individuals and close a wealth gap, but to repair our communities. Because institutions we've lost black banks. Because of the Great Recession, Michael, do you know that we lost more than half of our black auto dealerships?
Yes, I live in Detroit. Yes,
that's right.
I know.
Live in Detroit. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But sorry about that.
No, it's all right.
Our president
it's all right.
gave the money to the auto companies to bail themselves out, but there were no provisions that their contractors and subcontractors and the auto dealers would have any special provisions. And so, there was no, quote, affirmative action there to say, let's make sure that no particular community takes a greater burden. So while the overall number of dealerships nationwide dropped by 20%, the number of African-American owned dealerships dropped by, as I said, more than 50%. And an enormous amount of black wealth was concentrated in those auto dealerships, many of which were started because some of the auto companies actually had programs back in the 70s and 80s to assist brothers and sisters in starting, automobile dealerships. So there was no provision for them to come back and help again. The federal dollars should have been available with strings, but they were available with no strings.
Right,
and,
exactly.
I actually debated someone from who, this was years ago, in Detroit, actually, and he was part of the administration. He said, well, preserving black wealth was not one of our priorities.
See, that's problematic right there.
Brother. I couldn't think of anything else to say.
That's problematic.
About 3 times in my life.
And see the thing was, you're dealing with the auto dealerships that they greatly impact Detroit. You're dealing General Motors was housed, the headquarters is in Detroit. Chrysler, their headquarters, if I remember correctly, Dearborn, Michigan, outside of Detroit. But Detroit at one time had the highest percentage in the Metro Detroit area, had the highest percentage of African American homeowners in the country, largely because of the auto industry. Okay, so
Detroit had the highest number of black folks who did not have college degrees and had 6-figure incomes, and that was because of the auto industry.
Absolutely.
But Detroit was a mecca at one point for the African American middle class, and that's just been totally eviscerated. And like so many other cities, the gentrification in Detroit, people have basically, I don't want to use the term taking Detroit back, but it's kind of like making America great again.
It is.
Let me not go there. That's your
No, it is. I'm here.
That's your
I live in downtown Detroit, so that's where it hit first. I've lived in downtown Detroit for 20 years. That's where you first started. When you start seeing bike lanes being made up and down the street, you know white people are coming. That's just the bottom line. It's just the bottom line. Okay.
Bike lanes and random dogs.
Bike lanes, random dogs, yoga studios. When you start seeing that stuff popping up, that's for white folks coming in. That's what that is. Okay.
And some of these developments were developments that would not have happened for black people. When you start seeing schools improve, I live in downtown D.C. Same thing. When you start seeing schools improve that had not improved, you're like, okay, so young white folks are coming with their kids and they want to get ready for that. When the people who double park to go to a black church suddenly start getting ticketed. You know?
Yes. Okay.
But I know that you got Ron and another sister coming on, so let's just take a minute to talk about the conference. Because
that's what I was about to say.
I mean,
we had them on yesterday. But that's why I'm going to talk. You go ahead and talk about the conference and your involvement.
Well, what I want to talk about regarding the conference, I want to just encourage people who are listening to come and to register for the conference. Ron Daniels is really an unsung hero in our community. He has organized these State of the World Black World Conferences. This is the fourth one. They usually happen the week after the election, week or two after the election. And that's the time for us to come together as a people to talk about what we need to demand from the next president, whether it was Mr. Bush or whether it's Brother Obama or whether it's Hillary Clinton. I'm speaking that from my lips to God's ears, because if it's Mr. Trump, I'm just going to make sure that my passport is up to date and that I have some financial liquidity.
Absolutely.
But in any case, people should come because there are opportunities for people just to throw ideas out there, to work with others. A lot of people say they want to come because they want to speak, but it's not just about speaking. It's about not just about listening. It's about participating. We want to make sure that people with ideas come. We want to make sure that people who say, I've got a solution to this issue, come and talk with like-minded people. We really see this as, a manifestation of a grassroots movement. And so I'm just really encouraging people to come. There are lots of ways, you can register online. I'm sure you have the information, but it's IBW21.org
and people can also go to letsbuyblack365.com/events/SOBWC. And we're going to post that on the thread here of our Facebook Live broadcast. We have 900,000 followers on our Facebook fan page. Dr. Malveaux is the African History Network.
Well, congratulations. That's wonderful.
Oh, thank you. So we're broadcasting on Facebook Live now. We've been posting the information. We're running commercials here on the show also, doing the podcast of the show as well, letting people know about it as well. But go ahead.
But anyway, I just want to encourage people to come. We will have a panel on reparations. George Frazier is going to lead a conversation about black wealth. But I've been told that George has agreed that he will be speaking very briefly, maybe 5 minutes, in a session that's scheduled for 2 hours. He has two other panelists, or maybe three, but the whole point, Jim Klingman will be there, But the point is that they have a perspective, but we all want to hear what other people are saying, what they're doing in their communities. Some of us have a very broad national perspective, but we also want to know what's happening in local areas. And so we're really encouraging people to make this more than a success, to make it something seminal that we can look back on when we start organizing to do politics differently, and to say that some of the things that need to happen began at the State of the Black World Conference.
Absolutely. And this is a planning conference also. So this is because, and we made that point clear yesterday. I had Dr. Ron Daniels and Nataki Cambone on yesterday. This is a planning conference. So Dr. Malveaux will be there. I'll be there. Visit letsbuyblack365.com/events/SOBWC, and you can use promo code African History Network when you sign up. Once again, Dr. Malveaux, how can people get your book, and what is your website?
My website is www.juliannemalveaux.com. JulianneMalveaux. Malveaux.com. You'll find my columns posted there, some of my speeches are there, YouTube on there, and of course there is a button you can push to purchase my book, Are We Better Off? Race,
Absolutely.
Obama, and Public Policy. You can get the book there. My Facebook page, well, I think I'm full, but Julianne Malveaux, and I think I have a fan page, so if anyone would like to like my fan page, that's great. And my Twitter handle is at Dr. J Last Word.
All right, Dr. J. And I know another Dr. Dr. Leonard Jeffries, who's one of my teachers. He'll be there also. You're Dr. J as well. Well, look, it's great talking to you. I look forward to meeting you at the conference. Sister, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us, and you have a great day, okay?
Well, thank you, and thanks for the work you do. Thanks for lifting up the conference, but also thanks for coming out. We'll look forward to seeing you.
All right, no problem, sister. Have a good day. Peace.
Take care.